So today we'll be talking about Ridley in Smash. Joining me today is Sean Hicks
Hello?
and Chris Zeshaw. No,
Sheshel.
Sheshel.
Sorry.
See, I messed up.
Yes.
Triggered.
Sheshel. From the Smashify team.
Yes, we are. Thanks
and
for having
recently,
us.
it's our pleasure. Recently they did an amazing render of Ridley, what Ridley would look like if he were to join Smash for Wii U and 3DS as a character, and that's why we invited them on. Also joining us is Liquid 12A.
Heyo.
And he's kind of our Metroid guy on the Source Gaming team. He's written, I think, all the articles on Metroid on the site.
Well, technically, I've only not written one because, Spazzy had that and I didn't have an account yet, so then again, I collaborated with him on that, but I digress.
Let's start off with the history of Ridley in Metroid itself, the series. So Ridley has been an antagonist that has appeared in most of the games, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, Ridley's been not main, but one of the biggest main antagonists to Samus Aran, the sort of hero of the Metroid franchise. If you go into lore, Ridley's actually been there since like her young childhood days when, spoiler alert, he killed her parents, And so he's been reappearing past death. He's been cloned. He's been turned into a robot, and he comes back time and time again. It's just always sort of duke it out with Samus. So I would compare Samus to Ridley sort of like Batman to Joker. It's always going to be those two. Sure, there are other enemies in the franchise like Mother Brain or Dark Samus, but it's always going to be Ridley and Samus. And so Ridley's appeared in pretty much every game that I can think of that's a Metroid game, maybe besides Prime 2.
I think he was like a hidden
Am I wrong
boss,
in saying that?
if I recall correctly, or something like that.
The only games in which Ridley does not appear in are Metroid 2 Return of Samus, Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime Hunters, and Metroid Prime Federation
yes.
Force. But otherwise, he's always been there.
He's pretty much always there, and it's fine when he's not because it's still a great franchise. But he sort of is the livelihood of hate for Samus, so it's always great to see him around.
Liquid, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, not Ridley. I suppose this is going to be a Ridley big discussion. We're all Ridley going to enjoy it.
Get out of here.
Obligatory terrible
The
puns.
discussion ends now. So let's go on and talk about the history of Ridley's appearance in Smash. Ridley has actually been a character that has appeared in most of the Smash games, except for Smash for 3DS, I believe.
Yeah, that's the only one.
So, Sean, is there anything that you would like to talk about in regard to this topic?
It's just interesting, like, when they first showed Melee, and back in for the E3 trailer and everything, everybody thought that Ridley was going to be a part of the Melee roster, because, after that little short trailer, they started showing characters that were in that trailer playable. And people were like freaking out, like, "Oh my gosh, there's Bowser, there's Peach," So it was just kind of a big surprise that really wasn't an actual playable character in the game. And since then, it's been just a discussion of debate on when is he going to be a playable character, or if he's ever going to be a playable character.
So Sakurai, he actually made a Japanese version of the Melee website, and on that website he did a post about the opening movie, and within that post he did clearly state that not all the characters would be playable characters, but that information never made it to the West. It seems, because of course you have also Samurai Goro, who appears in the Melee opening movie too.
Yeah, and Wolf too. Yeah,
And Wolf.
That's right.
Yeah, lots of characters. Doesn't have to
the
necessarily mean they're playable.
Blues
but
Brothers kind of people from Earthbound.
Sakurai lied.
The
Yeah.
group.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
And then, Ridley was in Smash 64 as part of the stage. He appeared floating in the background. He was very, very tiny.
Oh, yeah.
Ironically.
He was a little sprite, I recall.
Yes. It was just a
Yeah.
sprite. Yeah, so cute.
And then Melee, like you mentioned, he was in the movie. And then he
also received his own trophy in that
received
game,
his own trophy. And then in Brawl, of course, he was planned to be an assist trophy, but then they decided to move him into the subspace emissary, I guess. It's not exactly clear. Sakurai has never commented on it, but there's some leftover data in Brawl which suggests that Ridley would have been an assist trophy at some point.
Hmm.
Am I missing anything else, Liquid?
Well, to Well, Ridley and Meta Ridley, if you want to go into technicalities, since
Yes. Mm-hmm.
whoever did it revived him and stuck him in his robot carcass and all. Technically, he has two trophies, two boss battles, and his anorexic design got first introduced here. Poor Ridley. But yeah, nothing much to say brawl-wise apart from that.
Smash for Wii U and 3DS came around, and people kind of got really hyped up over Sakurai's comments about boss character appearing at any time.
Yeah, well, what he did was there was a direct, right? There was a direct where
Yep.
he was showing sort of a glimpse of Pyrosphere, the stage, the Metroid stage. And there's a little shot where Pikachu runs across the stage and there's a shadow of Ridley following him. And it's clearly Ridley. You can see like the wings and the tail shape. And so everybody instantly gets hyped. And I remember even Sakurai used to do a picture of the day and he showed Pyrosphere way back in the day. And he was always like sort of hinting that Ridley could be there.
Yeah,
right?
he said
I admittedly was one of
I
those
think we
people
all
who
were.
just got a little too hyped
Like,
up.
we broke down that screenshot and everything, like trying to say, like, oh, it's a character shadow. See how it's in this angle.
Yeah, I remember the threads. It was like
Illuminati.
like they were measuring the shadow distance and like trying to figure out how big the character was.
Yeah, I remember that too. Like, people went into detail with that. It was nuts.
Serious business. Ridley, serious business.
Yeah. After the game came out, everyone realized that Ridley was a boss character, as in a boss character. And he's kind of a very robust boss compared to the other boss characters in Smash for Wii U and 3DS.
He is also a piñata.
Yeah. Yeah, because he gives you the points.
Interesting that Ridley gives you points when the Yellow Devil, I hate that boss, and Metalface don't. And it's an interesting distinction. But hey, at least Metalface is a blabbermouth to compensate.
Yeah, that's true.
He never shuts up.
I guess Yellow Devil, he blows up, and that's supposed to help you get the KOs.
I mean, technically Metalface does too, but,
Yeah.
Metalface is infinitely better because he's a large ham.
Okay. So what do you guys think about Ridley's representation in Smash up until now? Do you think it's been fair?
The first thing is obviously he should have been a playable character, period. I mean, obviously Sakurai and the team over at Sora have been thinking and contemplating whether or not to do this. I remember reading, actually, as a teenager, reading Nintendo Power Magazine, where they were interviewing Sakurai right around the time Brawl released, and he said in the interview, so the interviewee asked him, and he's like, why not Ridley? Everyone wants Ridley. Is he really too big? And I remember the quote was like, Sakurai pauses for a minute and thinks about it. He's like, maybe he wasn't too big. And like, that was the end of the conversation or whatever, maybe it would have been too hard, but it's interesting to think that on the other side, they've been contemplating, they maybe even brought it to a point of testing it. But, yeah, it's a shame that it never really got to the full extent of a playable character, and that it had to be sort of delegated towards a boss, a stage hazard, essentially. It's a shame because, the Metroid series is a great one, and to have two representatives, which are seriously just the same character, split in half, it's kind of sad for Smash representation,
Sean, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
It's just, I think Sakurai is kind of holding on to really as far like the big guns of characters to add into Smash. Like, I feel like he doesn't want to put in all these characters at once. Like King K. Rool was another big requested character, but he wasn't put into Smash either. Even through the Smash ballot, like, I've seen King K. Rool everywhere, including Ridley. So I just feel like he's holding on to those characters for like, if I make another Smash, I know who exactly to add. Maybe for Smash NX, we might actually see Ridley this time around. Maybe they're waiting for, a little bit more graphical push. It just all depends on what Sakurai's thinking, really. But it's just, yeah, it does.
Sounds pretty hopeful.
It's been alright on how he's handled. I mean, I would love to see him playable. More representation for the Metroid series. But for now, I guess the boss fights will do.
Well, maybe either that or maybe he's thinking of the perfect way to represent Ridley, I mean, anything's possible under Sakurai. He takes a lot of liberties. Maybe he's just trying to find something that fits within his artistic vision because, that was the point he discussed shortly after Smash Wii U released, that, hey, it wouldn't fit or whatever, it doesn't fit my vision. I mean, he didn't say that exactly, but that's kind of what you can infer from it. But maybe he's just biding his time, thinking of how it would fit. I mean, it's not like he hates the character or anything, as so many people like to claim. No. I mean, if you hated the character, why would you include him in the first place, right?
I think with IGN, he said that he knows that Ridley is a very highly requested character, but that something like if he had to shrink him down, he wouldn't be able to fly around freely. It wouldn't be accurate. That's what he was afraid of.
Yeah, I remember him saying like if we were to make Ridley smaller, it wouldn't be Ridley at all. It would be a totally different change proportions and stuff like that. I guess he wants to stay so true to the character that maybe he's wishy-washy about it. Kind of following.
That in itself is just not justifiable, though. Ridley, much like Bowser, much like Ganondorf, these characters have changed shape and size all throughout their history. The first Metroid game, Ridley was the same size as Samus, and sure, that wasn't the apex of Ridley designs, and it didn't end up sticking, and it changed over time, and he got bigger. But it's like, sure, you can mess with the proportions, and you can mess with the sizes, and I don't think you have to necessarily lose the character. It's a tightrope walk. You just have to figure out what to give and what to take, because he's still very possible to become a playable character, and we thoroughly explored this while we were developing the Smash Fight episode of Ridley. We went through every Ridley design that we felt represented the character to its core, and we found that it was certainly difficult to come up with the correct design and size comparison, but it definitely was in the it was possible. It was in the realm of possibility. So to just completely null it out, I think more than anything, it's Sakurai just saying we don't want to put the R&D time into figuring this out. We'd rather just spit out another character, that's a little easier to figure out, honestly, because it would take a bit to figure that out, right? Because Ridley, moveset wise, that's not going to be any easy burden on any team
because
member.
With Ridley, like, it has the
the
strong potential to be overpowered.
Well, that's the thing too, is like, how do you balance an overpowered character like that? I mean, Ganondorf's really powerful too, but he's slow. Ridley is thin and agile, and he attacks fast, but I imagine there would be a long sort of animation pullback when it comes to his attacks, because when he goes in deep and strong, but what's his body have to do after that to sort of get back to an idle animation? It's probably a couple seconds of vulnerability there.
It's kind of like a mix of Cloud and some other characters that I noticed that have that kind of lag. No, they're pretty fast, but they have that power lag.
Liquid, do you have anything?
Well, I really got nothing to add. It's just like I said before. You have to figure out the exact way to represent him properly while still adapting him to the source from the source material to Smash. I mean, really nothing much to add there besides.
Do you think it's possible?
I think it's surely possible. I mean, if it's possible to somehow make Bayonetta safe for an E10 plus game, Bayonetta, the glorified sex icon, that it's certainly possible to downsize Ridley. I mean, it's going to take a bit of effort, sure, but come on, you got sexy as hell Bayonetta in Smash. I mean, to me, it's possible. Yeah, sure, the analogy doesn't work entirely well, but still, it's something that people deemed an impossibility, and it happened.
Yeah.
So, hey, it works.
And kind of reflecting off of what Chris said earlier about power, Bayonetta, in her game, she takes down, angels of, godlike power. If they can put a character like that in a Smash, I think they could easily handle as to how Ridley's output attacks are.
One thing that I kind of wanted you guys' input on is a lot of these characters, like the ones where the sizes vary in appearances and stuff like that, they don't really have a lot of other characters with them in Smash. So like Olimar's, he's known for being small, but there isn't like I'm blanking on the monster name, but the red monster in Boblin. He's not really in Smash.
Boblin.
I mean, he is as a stage hazard, but he's not like a fighter.
Yeah, but I mean the difference. I think the difference between that is just like that's a lesser. That's not the Ridley has more stature and more promise than that. Ridley's not just a Metroid. Ridley's not just some wall crawling creature from Metroid. He's the main antagonist for most of the stories, and if not main, at least the one that sticks out the most as her sort of rival, I guess. You see Link with Bowser. I'm sorry, Mario with Bowser, Link with Ganondorf, all these enemies. There's like Mewtwo, I guess, is a bad Pokemon. There needs to be more enemy villain representation in Smash. They spent Smash 4 really getting the females into the game, and that's great. Like, power to you, ladies. But villains, there's like next to none in here, and it'd be great to see them in some sort of form other than just a stage hazard.
Well, yeah, Ridley's one of those big villains that. Sorry, big puns. Stop with those. Anyway, Ridley's one of those villains that people are going to demand forever. I mean, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of the era, if he doesn't get in, people are still going to demand him. I mean, when you consider how kind of the mantle kind of shifted during the ballot to King K. Rool, I mean, when you think about it, the similarities were almost eerie, like so highly requested. I mean, they even got their own ambiguous moments, like King K. Rool the Mii costume, Ridley with Pyrosphere. I mean, it's a testament to how much Ridley influences character discussion in Smash when you think about it. Yeah, that's just what I think.
Okay. So let's talk about the Smashified interpretation of Ridley. So what you guys had that great commentary, of course, where you talked a little bit about how you approach to the design and working on the model and everything. Is there a particular source that you drew from?
Well, the idea to just make a Ridley Smashified goes back to the fact that, it kind of delves into the Other M discussion because Smash 4 Metroid representation has been heavily based upon that of Metroid Other M, the last true Metroid game, if you don't count Federation Force, right? Because it's a spin-off. So that design aesthetic that was represented and displayed in that game is what is in Smash. And for that game, Ridley's in that game, but it's really a clone of Ridley. And when I think Ridley, as someone who's been playing these games since childhood and played every single one of them, Ridley has a more sort of iconic look. There's a very specific vision with Ridley that wasn't being met when it came to the Other M design because it's so different, and it's different in the same way that Ridley's different in the Prime series as well, where it's really just the matter of this character needs a translation to 3D, and we're going to have to make some sort of interpretations. We're going to have to take artistic liberties and create a new Ridley because how do you interpret the old? And so for us as the Smashified team, we really wanted to try more than ever to just represent classic Ridley as best we may. So we pulled from three sources. We pulled a little bit from Other M Ridley, just because there were some good things about that design, from head design to tail design. There was some really creative stuff that happened there that we were inspired by, and that fed into the design a bit. But the main two Ridleys that informed our design were that of Super Metroid and Metroid Zero Mission. I see those two Ridleys as quintessential Ridleys. They got the double jointed neck, the giant claws and hands, the typical Ridley head, and the wingspan that you'd expect for this character. And these were all things that we had to certainly meet. These were all landmarks on the character's design that couldn't be overlooked or changed or dismissed. If it had to be Ridley and Smash, it had to be based upon those designs. And you look back at the Melee cinematic and trophy, and the Ridley design that they have there was I believe the first 3D model for Ridley ever made, and that was based off of Super Metroid. So we had sort of a starting point there from which we decided to get creative with it, adding the Zero Mission design, adding a little bit more anatomy because there was a lot left up to imagination. We couldn't make it cartoon Ridley. Super Metroid Ridley is super cartoony. There's a lot of simplification. There's a lot of like wishy-washy things when it came to anatomy, so we had to sort of pull on our own anatomy knowledge and see what we could do with this character. And so for Smashify, we wanted to stay true to the classics, mix them in with some of the presence of like Other M, and just come up with the greatest design that we could that would somehow fit into the game. And as a team, I believe
for sure,
we did that.
Yeah, we all pitched in. We put all little special talents together and created a Smashified Ridley.
Liquid, what are your thoughts on the Smashified model?
Well, knowing how they thought of the design, directly from them, it's really interesting to see how they took all these elements from every game, even Other M, as much maligned as it is. But hey, it has a nice Ridley design, if a little overdosed on steroids. But I mean, they even took the anorexic Ridley from Brawl to an extent. But I'm really fascinated by how much planning went into the overall design of Ridley as a Smashified character. So, I mean, that's a testament to how much they work on it.
It's interesting you could bring up the quote-unquote anorexic side of Ridley because, as many people know, the Metroid franchise is heavily influenced by that of the Alien movies and that franchise. And so Ridley is a sort of interpretation and inspiration of the Xenomorph from that movie, which is a super long, dark, lengthy monster, essentially, right? So we sort of kind of referenced that a little bit while creating this design. Not so much in the design, just in terms of like anatomy, how much bone structure to show, how much skin flab that would be pushed over. We played with a lot of different ideas, a lot of different like, how does his back muscles protrude and become these wings? Because there's no real creatures in the world that have wings and arms. Usually your arms become your wings and you fly like a bat, right? So there was a lot of sort of creation process that had to be done in that, and sort of like we looked into the Xenomorph, because that character has a lot of protruding bone structure, whereas with Ridley, looking at like Super Metroid art, where he's got this more sort of rounded shape, these rings that come out of him, that could in essence be translated to more of a skinny, like the skin's so tightly wrapped around the bone and the muscle, kind of look. And that really shows more so on the back of our Ridley, with the shoulder blades sort of pushing out and being pushed up in towards the neck because these wings have sprouted out, So we got pretty deep with the actual anatomy of it, how the spine becomes the tail. Yes. There was a lot of discussion. This was a lot.
We had a lot of discussion on how much detail to show to. Near the end, Omni was like, it was starting to get a little bit too detailed at first because we're keeping in mind as to like we're trying to fit the Smash Wii U style. So if we have too much detail, then it's going a little bit overboard. But if we don't have enough, then it's just going to be a little off. So near the end in the video, you see where Omni's just combine everything together and touching up and making some details a little bit more smoother and deciding on which details to keep and which ones to kind of soften up. I think toward that end, we referenced a little bit from the comic Ridley, what Chris was talking about earlier, where we have a little bit of his backstory. And we fell in love with that really because it really shows his personality, his character. It even talks a little bit too. So in his design and that, it's really nice. It's just a nice balance of Super Metroid design that has a little bit of flavor to it too.
Yeah, the part in particular that we were referencing for that was the head. When it came to the head, that's the most iconic part of Ridley. He's got the double jointed neck, but his head is him. He's this sort of pterodactyl-like thing. And I did the initial sculpt for the head for Ridley as best I could, and I was sort of basing it off of the Super Metroid version, but it felt like it had to be a little bit more flatter. What was nice about the design that came in Other M is they were doing the same thing that the Prime series was, and that's problem solving. They were trying to figure out how to make this head work. And even though they got rid of the double jointed neck, they sort of made these little protrusions from the jawline that sort of flare out that would in essence be used for aerodynamics while this character's flying, which just screams awesome. So we kind of threw that in. and sort of wove it together with the skull structure of this elongated cranium that is presented in the comic, and of course the long.
Let's not forget his
jaw,
smirk too,
chomper and everything.
His little
Trying to keep
smirk.
the teeth. It's pretty much where we got our inspiration from all around.
So what do you think a Ridley moveset could look like? Like if we were to start off with the specials.
For sure, I think he should have like a shield break that involves his tail, maybe. Because a lot of the heavy characters, they have a shield break of some sort, like Bowser's, I forgot what moveset it is, but where he goes up in the air and he slams down. Yeah, where he slams down, and then King Dedede has his hammer and he has it charged up. That's the shield break, or his what's that? Those things that he throws out. I don't remember them, but those can shield break too.
The Waddle Dees.
Not the Waddle
You
Dees.
mean the Gordos?
The Gordos,
yeah.
The Gordos can do a shield break too. So I think Ridley should definitely have like a shield break of some sort that just makes him really disadvantageable for those hard scenarios where you're fighting like a projectile character or any other character that's hard against heavy hitters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I bet his neutral B would
Yeah.
probably be some sort of fireball, neutral special. He should definitely be able to swing up into the air for a while. Maybe have a couple jumps the way like Kirby does. Maybe a little wider, because his game is that he's a heavily air-based character, but he's also supposed to be pretty fast on the ground. And this character's agile and quick, but he should have that sort of hold back when it comes to the recoil animation. I imagine he'd be using his tail a lot, he'd be using his hands a lot, and he'd be using his fire breath a lot. One tail attack in particular that sticks out to me is the one that he's very commonly known for, where he jumps off the ground and just starts to sort of slam his tail down, catapulting it down very quickly like a needle, like a spike to the table. So that one would surely be in there. I don't know. There's a lot that could happen. I guess there's a lot to pull
His
from
recovery
in terms
move
of
always
moveset.
was decisive on it, whether it should be like bringing back gliding that Charizard used to have, or maybe just have where he kind of where we see in Brawl where he kind of like readies himself and then he launches himself up into the air, but have an alteration to where he can just do that in the air.
Yeah.
Like kind of like Pit.
Well,
I think.
one thing, one of his moves in Other M actually was where he does this sort of twirl attack, a drill attack. Like he goes through some walls and stuff in that game with this attack. So I imagine his special op would be
cool.
something of a drill like that, maybe.
So he would have the best recovery in the game. Like even like more so than
Definitely.
Villager, right?
I was about to say, watch out, Villager.
Those balloons are gonna pop.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely have to be some sort of downside.
Yeah.
He can't just be a powerful, fast character with like the best recovery ever. He's got to leave himself pretty vulnerable at times, which he does. In the games too. So.
I hear stuff like make us up be a drill, and I mean, no offense to anyone, but I mean, as a sort of joke, I mean, I can only see Charizard like that, and the Charizard Ridley jokes, something that, yeah, I know, I mean, but obviously you want to make Ridley his own thing. I mean, draw as much inspiration as possible from the source material. Don't make it look like, oh my God, Ridley's a Charizard clone. Wow, why'd you add Ridley? I mean, you want to make him distinguishable in some aspects. I mean, the Project M mod, if you all know that, I think they did a pretty damn fine job of giving Ridley his own unique shtick without making him like a Charizard clone. Even though, ironically, I mean, Charizard was used as a base, sort of. But over time, as the mod went evolving, the creator, I think he's 15 years old today, he made liberal changes to his moveset. I mean, his down throw, for example, was first a straight copy of Charizard's down throw, but over time it became this attack where Ridley just slams his tail into the foe repeatedly, and then they're launched. I mean, it's important to make a distinction like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just kind of make it as unique as possible.
Yeah, maybe more of a running special. I don't know.
All right, guys. Well, I think that wraps up our discussion. So, Sean, where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Sean Hicks Art. They can also go to my Tumblr page, which is tumblr.com/Sean Hicks.
Okay, and Chris?
DeviantArt is Zeschel, Zesiul. Chris Sheschel on Instagram. You can just follow us on Twitter at Smashified or at Chris Sheschel. And
Yeah,
watch our videos. They're awesome.
definitely be including the link. And Liquid, how about you?
Well, anyone who watches SG regularly already knows my Twitter handle at Liquid12A, and I'm also on Smashboards or on YouTube or wherever you want to find me. Same name.
I'm Push Dustin. You can follow me at Push Dustin, and you can check out sourcegaming.info for more translations, articles. We do a bunch of stuff every day, so check it out. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment below on what kind of videos you'd like to see from us in the future. Make sure you like and comment and subscribe for more Smash related content in the future.